Hey, what is up you guys? ASM here, and today I'm bringing you the Resto Druid PvE guide. Since as you guys know, I'm not currently PvPing until 6.2. If you're watching this in 6.2, I might be, might not be. I don't know, you'll have to watch a more recent video. But this is gonna be not really a basic or advanced, it's gonna be kind of both. Since there's already a lot of Resto Druid PvE guides out there, I want to kind of go over the basic stuff more quickly so I can focus on the more complicated things and actually teach you guys who already know the basic stuff something in this video. So, as usual, you can check the description for timestamps for what I'm going to be talking about. So if you already know, like let's say you already know the talents and the glyphs, but you want to know about the cooldowns, you can click on the timestamp and see just that part. So let's get right into this. The first things first, the stat priority. Obviously, intellect is first, and then spirit until you're comfortable, you're not going to them as easily. Then haste, mastery, multi-strike, crit, then versatility. And the spirit thing, you basically, to be comfortable, you kind of need either a lot of spirit rings and necks or whatever, or you need the black hand trinket. And if you aren't progressed high enough to get black hand trinket, the Beast Lord spirit trinket is a good second. So for the talents, the 15 talent you're generally going to be using is Displacer Beast. 30 talent you're almost always going to be using as Ysera's Gift. 45 talent is entirely fight dependent, but most of the time you don't really need to use any of them, so you can pick whatever you want. 60 talent, I usually use Soul of the Forest, but it depends on the fight. Like fights that have a lot of burst damage at one point, you could use Tree of Life. In fights that have a lot of raid damage, but more separated, not like super deadly raid damage, Soul of the Forest. And Force of Nature is typically never used. 75 talent is a CC talent tree, so it's very, very, very unlikely you're going to be using this very often. I'm just kind of going with Mighty Bash for an ad or something. You know, you never know when you can stun something, but the 90 talent, Heart of the Wild, is a good option. You can usually use it with your Trank, but if you aren't needing to, Dream of Cenarius makes a really good filler. Like if you don't have a mana trinket, you can use Dream of Cenarius and just Wrath a lot to save mana. It's a really good filler. Nature's Vigil is, I mean, it's really situational, but it's a lot of damage in 2 minute or 1.5 minute intervals. That can be really helpful. Also, it's good for dealing damage to the boss if you're struggling with Enrage. The 100 talent you're always going to use at the moment. Let's say for some reason nerf this, is Germination. Next thing is Glyphs. The only glyphs that are mandatory for healing output is Glyph of Regrowth, Glyph of Wild Growth, and Glyph of the Sprouting Mushroom. So you can place your mushroom wherever you want to, not just on a player. Glyph of Regrowth is really helpful because, well, it makes it crit, so you can get the Living Seed going, and you can also use it to keep your mastery up as a general thing, just because it heals more. Glyph of Wild Growth, kind of obvious, more targets affected by Wild Growth, but don't use that in dungeons. So now let's go over the probably most important part, the playstyle. So, playstyle, rotation, whatever you want to call it. The most important thing is keeping your mastery up by casting Regrowth, Healing Touch, or Swift Bend. All three of those will refresh the mastery, which lasts about 20 seconds. Confirm that. 20 seconds exactly, it lasts 20 seconds. It increases your hot healing, which is pretty much everything, by however much mastery you have. And that is insanely helpful. If you don't have it up all the time, your healing could be so much better. So I have a weak core I'm going to link on the Google Doc and probably in the description as well. That can really help you out with that if you're struggling. Next most important thing is keeping your life bloom up on an active tank for the regrowth procs and the healing itself. Third thing, keep rejuves on the main tank at least, and the off tank if he's going to be picking up the boss soon. You don't want to have to try and play catch up. Fourth thing, save Swift Mend for Wild Growth if you're using Soul of the Forest, because Wild Growth is very mana intensive, so you never want to be using it if it's not going to be at its max potential. It's still going to heal a lot, but with Swift Mend it'll heal 50% more. You want to use your Wild Growth during intensive raid damage, but be careful because it does use a lot of mana. So you don't want to use it every time there's intensive raid damage. You want to use it only when you really need to. like as kind of a filler, if you're not using Dreamz scenarios, you just kind of rejuve raid members. Anyone who's kind of low or anything, just spam rejuve basically. Unless you're going then you can Wrath, because that's free, it's free damage. And then you want to keep your mushroom down as much as possible. If the range are stacked, then you can put it on them. If they're not stacked, put it on the melee. Well, actually, even if the range are stacked, if there's more melee, put it on the melee. Basically, put it anywhere, put it where it's going to do the most healing. Or if there's another Resto Druid, you guys can coordinate, you know, put one range, put one melee. But the point is, you want this down as much as possible. The healing for it adds up very quickly. It can tick for up to like 20k. It's extremely helpful. And the very last thing is you want a filler is Wrath if you are using Dreamz scenarios, obviously. It's good for mana, it's good healing, good overall because it's good damage too. So that's about it for the playstyle. The next important thing is the cooldown usage. So in general, your cooldowns will probably be set up by like a raid leader, healing officer, whoever might be setting them up if you're in a guild. Even in Pug, sometimes they set them up. So you don't want to be using them if they're set up. You only want to be using them where you're supposed to. But if they're not set up, you're going to want to use your cooldowns, obviously, so you don't wait. The first cooldown being Tranquility. It's probably the best healing cooldown in the game, especially for high damage phases that last between like 5 and 10 seconds, because it keeps ticking throughout that time. Like for example, Firestorm on Flamebender, you can basically solo that with one Tranquility if you're decently geared. Demolition on Blackhand, it has been nerfed a lot, but it still can hurt, so Tranquility is very helpful there if you get a bot or a fox. And the biggest downfall for Tranquility is that you can't move while doing it, so you do want to coordinate a Hunter's Fox with it, or you get bopped by Paladin. The next cooldown that I want to go over that isn't really considered a major cooldown in PvE is Nature's Swiftness. With your 2-set bonus, let me read exactly what it says. It says, Nature's Swiftness now works on the next 3 spellcasts. So that is insanely good. You can use that to heal someone for about 150k in 3 globals. So I mean, it's not amazing, but it's only a 1-minute cooldown and it's absolutely free for mana. So you want to be using this, you want to be taking advantage of this as much as possible. Like if there's a bunch of people that are low and you don't have a whole lot of mana left, you can just use that, regrowth a couple of them. That'll also get a Living Seed on them, which is even more healing as soon as they take damage. If you have the Glyph, of course. And you can use it on the tanks if they're low. It's very helpful. You want to use it as much as possible. It's not really an emergency cooldown, since the healing isn't really good enough to be an emergency situation unless it's paired with Soul the Forest proc. But most emergency situations, you don't have that much preparation time. You can't get 2 globals. So you basically just want to be using that very often. The next cooldown I want to go over is Iron Bark. It's kind of a Druid niche. A 1-minute cooldown for the last 12 seconds, damage taken by 20%, or reduces damage taken by 20%. It's pretty good. I mean, it's one of the weaker tank cooldowns, but it's low cooldown, so you can use it quite often. If you have a tank in your guild that calls for it all the time, then that's the only time you really want to use it is when he calls for it. So if he does call for it and he needs that 20% extra, you have it. But if you don't have a tank that's calling for it, you can just kind of use it whenever the tank is getting low, consistently spiking on his health, or he has a lot of stacks of a tank debuff and the other tank hasn't taunted yet. There's a lot of situations. You want to take advantage of it as much as you can. Now, if you're not using Soul of the Forest, you're going to have Incarnation and Tree of Life, because Force of Nature, pretty much useless. So Tree of Life is more of a mana cooldown than anything. At least that's how I use it, since I don't have a healing trinket yet. I use Tree of Life and kind of coat the raid and rejuves during high damage phases, so I don't have to wild growth as often. Tranquility is a lot more useful for the high damage phases, but if you're doing like Gruul, you would want to pop this before the 3rd slice, so you can start coating everyone that has the debuff ticking on them, and is going to have the debuff ticking on them. It adds up very quickly, it's a lot of healing, and it's a lot cheaper on mana. Or you can also use this on damage phases that last longer than 10 seconds, like the last phase of Beast Lord on any difficulty really, after he gets off his last animal, whether that be 3rd or 4th, it lasts a long time and there's a lot of damage going out. And that 30 seconds of extra mana basically and extra healing can be very helpful. And your wild growth also does target another player, I believe. It does something to wild growth, so you can still use that. Another cooldown, Heart of the Wild, which would be used a lot. 35% extra healing and extra damage if you're struggling on a rage. You basically want to use this with your Tranquility or with your Tree of Life, unless your healing officer has told you otherwise. It lasts 45 seconds, which the tooltip does not say, but it does in fact last exactly 45 seconds, so it's a very long cooldown, but it's a very long-lasting and effective cooldown, since it's, well, 3-minute cooldown, or 6-minute cooldown, sorry. It kind of has to be really effective to be at all viable. Now, if you're not using Heart of the Wild, and you're not using Dream of Cenarius, you're using Nature's Vigil, which, as I said earlier, when I was talking about the talents, it's very useful for frequent, heavy healing phases. Frequent being earlier than your Tranquility is up, or Tree of Life is up every minute and a half, or 2 minutes. It can be very helpful, or if you need extra damage, but not all at once, like not burst damage. Nature's Vigil will probably give you more damage on a fight where, like, Heart of the Wild is helpful. It can do a lot of damage in that 45 seconds. But on a fight, like for example on Gruul Mythic progression, I tried Heart of the Wild, spammed Wrath and everything, and I ended up doing more damage by just rolling Nature's Vigil and using it on cooldown. And we ended up killing the boss because of that extra almost 2 million damage that I did with Nature's Vigil. It adds up. And that's pretty much all the Druid cooldowns I can really talk about. So let's move on to the next section. So, unlike PvP, there is not a whole lot to talk about in PvE. It's more of a rotation, and then you need to practice a lot to really master it. But I do know a few small tricks that will help you out in the long run if you can get them down. The first one being, Wild Growth is an insanely strong spell, but its downside is, I'll read it for you. Heals up to 6 injured allies within 30 yards of the target. The problem is it's within 30 yards of the target, so if you put it on a range to standing far away from the melee, it's not going to heal any melee, probably not even the tanks. Which sometimes you want to get it on a tank or a melee, or you never know who's going to be damaged, so you want to find a person who's standing close to the ranged, close to the melee, and close to the tanks, within 30 yards of all of them. And if you can't find that person quickly, target yourself and put yourself in a position where you can be that person. Unless you're going to wipe the raid by doing that, then you just got to pick one. If you got to heal melee more, or if you got to heal range more, you just got to make the decision. But if possible, you want to have a middle person being someone else or yourself. You just want to have more options for your wild growth. Because I've had it where I casted wild growth on like a tank or something, and it only healed 2 people. And that is a lot of mana for 2 people. So be careful with that. Next tip is, if you're not using Soul of the Forest, Swiftmend is probably your best tool for keeping up your mastery. It is, well, it's a little more expensive than Healing Touch, but it's instant cast, and you can use it on half the raid probably, because you have a lot of rejuice going out most of the time. It can be helpful. If the target's already low, you can go ahead and use that. You don't want your mastery to fall off at any time, so taking the extra 2 seconds to cast a Healing Touch is sometimes not really possible if you want to keep your mastery up, or if you want to not stand in fire. So you got to use that Swiftmend. The next tip is, take advantage of your movement. There are a lot of fights where you standing there, the Tranquility, unlike, let's say, a Holy Priest, they have their Hymn of Hope, or Hymn of Divine Hymn, something like that. Basically, it's like Tranquility, but not as strong. They sometimes can't finish the cast because, like, a train's coming, or there's fire. But as a Druid, you can stand there and finish that cast until you absolutely have to move. And then you can use Displacer's Beast. As long as you aim yourself in the right direction beforehand, and just before the train's gonna hit you, you need to like, aim yourself while right-clicking and dragging. When you're tranquilating, I'm not sure if you move or not. Okay, you do, and then you aim yourself where you want to go, and just when you have to go, you hit that Displacer Beast, and you are safe. But you don't want to wait too long, because sometimes lag can get you, sometimes you misjudge the speed that the train is coming, you misjudge how fast you're going to die from the fire. You don't want to end up killing yourself doing this, but once you've kind of mastered the rotation and everything, you can try and master little things like that. And the last tip I can personally give you is you don't want to use a Drainic mana potion unless you absolutely cannot stop and use a channeled mana potion. The channeled gives a lot of more mana. Channeled gives 51,000 mana, but it takes 10 seconds of sitting there not doing healing, not doing anything. But the Drainic mana potion gives you 34,000 mana, which is quite a lot less. But the upside is that you can do it while moving. You can. It's just, I don't even think it's a global. You can just do it. But the channeled potion, if you're going to use that, you want to make sure that there's nothing coming up. Like, let's say you're on Beast Lord Dharma. You want to make sure he's not going to breathe fire soon. You want to make sure there's no pins coming soon. That's basically the two things. And you want to make sure your mastery is at least 10 seconds left. Because if your mastery falls off, you're basically doing nothing while you're sitting there. And you want to at least have your hots on your tanks, at least, ticking for more than 20% less than they could be. You want them to be ticking as hard as they can, so while you're down, the other healers don't have to struggle to keep up everyone. It's very helpful to know these little things, and I sometimes still mess them up because I don't PvE in my Druid a whole lot. But these are just things I've learned from the little PvE I've done on this character, and I hope that you learn something from this all. Also, if you're looking for boss-specific talents and stuff, there is a website that is really good for that, but it's all mythic, so if you want a heroic version, I can probably supply that, but I'm not gonna put in the work and effort for that unless I actually get like at least one person to request it. The mythic one should get you. It'll help you a lot, because a lot of the fights are pretty similar, and I'll link the website in the description. It also has a lot of other cool tips and tricks on it. Not a whole lot that probably weren't in this video, but it goes in depth with a lot of things, and I think you'll find it a really good resource, and it'll probably update for 6.2. It also has a lot of other classes on there, so hope you find that helpful. And I'll post some weak auras, one being the mushroom. If it's not up, it'll pop up in the middle of your screen and show you, and if your mastery isn't up, another one will blink, and when your mastery is up, there'll be like a countdown showing you how long. They're very helpful weak auras, and if you want them, there'll be a paste bin in the description. You can just import them. Other than that, I think that's it. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope I helped some of you, and I hope you guys, at least some of you, liked PvE, because I'm probably going to be streaming it. But I finally got my internet to work, and I started streaming. But now both the guilds I'm in have had to hold their mythic progression until 6.2. So I won't expect a whole lot of streams until then. But once 6.2 comes, I'm going to try and stream Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday being on my Shaman, Friday, Saturday being on my Druid, both starting about 6 to 6:30 PST. So look out for that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.